Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's press briefing here on the coronavirus. I'm Donna Bush. Welcome to you, our viewers on CIG television, as well as our listeners on Radio Cayman and those tuning in on our social media platforms. Before we go to the panelists today, we'd like to begin with a prayer from Ms. Kathy Gomez.
Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, you are the God of all our days, and we thank you for carrying us through the good times and the bad times. Father, we look to you now, knowing that you are still in control, and we ask for your mercy on our three little islands and countries around the world. We ask for your comfort to be upon the families who have suffered loss around the world, and we ask for wisdom and guidance through your word in this time of crisis. Father, your word reminds us that you have not given us a spirit of fear. You have given us a spirit of power, of love, and of self-discipline. Help us to exercise this power, this love, this self-discipline that you have given us in a way that is pleasing to you. Bless and protect our government and those among us who are in healthcare, the prison service, the police service, the fire service, and all essential services. Father, I pray for prisoners and their families and all who are already challenged in one way or the other. Cover all of our families, O God, with your protection. Thank you for the courage, hope, and peace that we have in you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Gomez. A reminder to also look online at gov.ky/coronavirus for all the answers to your unanswered questions. Also, if you'd like to hear about any complaints as it relates to unemployment or employment issues or crisis, you may go online also to the same website there and check under the Department of Labor and Pensions for all of your answers there. You can also check out eservices.gov.ky if you'd like any information on police clearances or trade and business, as well as vehicle licensing information. Now we welcome our panelists, His Excellency the Governor, Premier, the Honorable Alden McLaughlin, as well as the Minister of Health, the Honorable Dwayne Seymour. Also joining us in the room are the Chief Medical Officer, as well as the Commissioner of Police and Sign Language Interpreter, Miss Carolyn Powell. Of course, joining us as well, as they do each day, are the media. They're all at home, joining us via Zoom. We go now live to Dr. John Lee.
Good afternoon. I have no results to report from today. The laboratory has been doing validation tests on the test kits that have come from South Korea, and I'm pleased to be able to report that they all passed their validation with no problems whatsoever. I also wanted to clarify for the benefit of perhaps some of the international media, because I've heard reports regionally that it's been said that we're using immunoglobulin-based testing. We're not doing that. Our testing kits that have arrived to give us a very large capacity are for reagents for the polymerase chain reaction process, and that is the test kit, the test mechanism that we're using at the moment. We've had a very good meeting this morning with senior government members and the medical profession to discuss both the testing protocol, how we're going to change the testing protocol, the capacity of the labs to be able to test, and the professional clinical management of how we're going to manage any ongoing patients with COVID-19, whether it be in primary care setting or through into secondary care or intensive care, should they need that. I wanted to take this opportunity to remind everybody that if you are swabbed for COVID-19 to check if you've got it, if you've been asked to isolate, this is an absolute requirement under the law. You cannot leave home without the express permission from the medical officer of health. If you breach this, you're liable to a fine of up to $1,000 and 6 months imprisonment. So please adhere to the law, because it is the intention that we will pursue people if they are breaching their isolation requirements. It's great that we're approaching the Easter holidays, and I hope you all get some rest, and I wish you all a happy Easter. Now is possibly the time to think about your health. You have a bit more time at home. I've seen a lot more people on the roads doing their exercise. I have seen some evidence out there that if you're running or if you're cycling, then you should keep your social distancing to be much wider, up to 5 meters or 15 feet for runners, and up to 60 feet, 20 meters if you're cycling at a rapid pace, just because you're traveling through the air much faster and any droplets may be spreading around you. So please keep a safe distance when you're exercising. And because COVID-19 affects the lungs, it's also a good time to consider stopping smoking. Thank you, Donna.
And thank you very much, Dr. Lee. We'd like to now call on the Commissioner of Police, Mr. Derek Byrne, to give the very latest updates, and we'll save any questions for Dr. Lee in just a few minutes.
Good afternoon. Very quiet overnight, no significant issues of a policing nature to report. Crime remains very stable and the hard curfew continues to operate very well across the islands. Little Cayman, no issues overnight. Cayman Brac, 40 vehicles stopped by police, 2 persons found in 1 car, and both found to be in breach of curfew and warned for prosecution. Grand Cayman overnight, 170 vehicles stopped overnight, no breaches of curfew detected. 1 person was found out exercising at 4:28 a.m. this morning in breach of curfew and warned for prosecution. A reminder that the hours for exercising approved under the Public Health COVID-19 Suppression Regulations 2020 are between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. daily, Monday to Saturday, during periods of soft curfew. Exercise periods are not permitted during hard curfew hours, which are 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. nightly, and this will apply this coming Sunday, Easter Sunday, the 12th of April. There is a full lockdown for the 24 hours, 12:01 a.m. to 12 midnight on Sunday, which in effect brings a lockdown from 7 p.m. on Saturday evening, the 11th of April, to 5 a.m. the bank holiday Monday morning, the 13th of April 2020. Looking at 6 a.m. this morning until shortly before dinner hour, 2 persons found in breach of soft curfew regulations and warned for prosecution. Neither person had any lawful purpose to be out and about. Business at supermarkets this morning, pharmacies, banks and gas stations are operating well and are being managed well and well controlled, with social distancing protocols being followed. There is activity along the beaches with persons out walking and exercising, and our helicopter and marine units remain deployed on extended tours monitoring marine and ground activity. A reminder that we return to hard curfew this evening, 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. tomorrow morning. Persons not exempted as essential services personnel should not be out and about during these hours. Police static and mobile patrols will be in place across the islands to impose the curfew. Please stay at home, Cayman. And on behalf of the RCIPS, I wish you and your families a safe and happy Easter weekend. No other issues arising from police. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner of Police. Before we move on to our panelists, we're going to have any questions from the media for Dr. Lee and Commissioner Byrne. We're going to go first to Wendy from CNS.
Thank you very much, Donna. The question is a follow-up on what Dr. Lee was speaking about a moment ago, and I think the answer is probably going to come from him and the police commissioner. We've had some very credible reports here at CNS regarding people attempting to report curfew breakers, and they have gone to the police to do this. And when they've approached, and they've spoken to 2 different officers and have been told that the police do not have the details of the people who are in mandated isolation as a result of testing positive. I was wondering whether we could get some clarification on that. If that is the case, why the police, at least in the beat areas where these people are living, are not being told, and whether the public health law does not overrule the data protection law. So if we could get some information on that, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Well, that's a tricky one. If a query was to would come to public health about any particular issue, then we would raise that matter with the law enforcement agencies. There is some covert work that is being done. If we have any credible reason to suspect people are not complying with their curfew. However, it remains the public health team that do a lot of the surveillance with regards this requirement.
So sorry, can I follow up? Is there a reason why the police can't be given, because it's only a handful of people, so why the police can't be given the names in the particular beats, like the community beat officers that police the area of where the people are living?
We're not releasing that information to any agency who does not absolutely require it.
Wendy,
I was just wondering why the police wouldn't be considered an absolute requirement, given they're the ones that would help enforce.
Let me give you an example, Wendy. Let me give you an example to explain. So, for example, let us say we had an absolutely complying family who are being the model, absolute model citizens with regards to this. And there were, I don't know, 3 other absolutely model families who had no problems at all complying. We had no question about it. There was no suggestion that they're breaching it. They would be quite rightly asking us, what right did we have sharing their information when that there was no suggestion that they were in any way breaching the law. So if you flip the question around a bit, that's the stance that we have to look at. We have to, even though we might be public health doctors, we always have the patient, we hold the patient as the most important person, and we try to protect their rights whenever we can.
Wendy?
I understand that. So in other words, rather than reporting to the police, they should be reporting directly to public health.
There's not one size fits all, like most of life. We take each of the individual cases where we're isolating families on their individual merits and make decisions on those individual cases. And we have, the surveillance team has grown substantially from where it was 2 weeks ago. So we have a lot more staff looking at it and thinking about it. And they have a lot of skills in order to try and see whether they feel people are complying or not. I mean, that is their role. I mean, not just now, but the staff that are doing a lot of the patient or subject contact are people that do this all the time, but it's the back office that we've really supported them and giving them extra ability to do their jobs.
Okay, Wendy, any follow-up questions for Dr. Lee, or should we move on to our commissioner? Okay, any further questions? Wendy, are you hearing me? Okay, we're going to go to Reshma now from the Cayman Compass.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Reshma, please go ahead.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon to the panel. Dr. Lee, this question is for you. Can you tell us how many tests are pending? I know yesterday you said, I think it was 21, and you may have some. Can you say why we don't have any results today? The questions are coming in on that.
Sorry, Reshma, it wasn't 21 yesterday. It was 21 from the day before yesterday, 28 from yesterday, plus another 17 today, which I think 65 currently pending.
65 pending. Can you say how soon we'll get those results?
I understand they're probably going to be running them through the process starting about now, so a few hours. They'll certainly should be available for tomorrow. I'm not sure if we're having a press conference. Saturday, beg your pardon, Saturday.
Saturday? Okay, thank you. This one is for the commissioner, if possible. We've gotten a couple of queries on the arrest that happened this week in relation to the audio note involving the BA flight. Can you possibly provide us with an update on what's happening with that particular investigation?
I'm sorry, Reshma, I missed the question. I didn't get it, sorry.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to find out if you have any updates that you can provide us today on the arrest that was made in the fake news incident that happened this week.
Yes, I reported yesterday we had one person arrested, detained and interviewed. That person has now been released on bail, and a file is being prepared, submitted to the Director of Public Prosecutions for legal ruling, and in due course we'll receive that legal ruling.
Okay, thank you very much. That's my questions for Dr. Lee and the Commissioner.
All right, thank you very much, Reshma. I'd also like to now mention that we have on via Zoom with us Dr. Samuel Williams Rodriguez. Welcome, Dr. Williams Rodriguez, if anybody has questions for him at some point. And now we're going to move on to the main panel, beginning with our premier, the Honorable Alden McLaughlin.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My customary World Stats report on the progress of the virus through the global community. Total cases now reported to be 1,533,541. Total persons recovered, 344,467. The United States, total cases, 455,454, up 20,527 overnight. Total deaths, 16,114, up 1,326 overnight. Spain, 152,446, up 4,226 overnight. Total deaths, 15,238, up 446 overnight. Italy, 143,626, up 4,204 overnight. Total deaths, 18,279, up 610 overnight. France, 117,749, up 4,799 overnight. Total deaths, 12,210, up 1,341 overnight. Germany, 115,523, up 2,227 overnight. Total deaths, 2,451, up 102 overnight. China, 81,865, up 63, just 63 overnight. Total deaths, 3,335, up just 2 overnight. United Kingdom, 60,733. I don't have numbers for new cases overnight. Total deaths, 7,097, and I don't have the numbers for new deaths. They weren't available at the time I printed this. Netherlands, been added by request, 21,762 cases, up 1,213 overnight. Total deaths, 2,396, up 148 overnight. Canada, 20,690 cases, up 1,252 overnight. Total deaths, 503, up 76 overnight. Portugal, 13,956, up 815 overnight. Total deaths, 409, up 29 overnight. India, 6,725, up 809 overnight. Total deaths, 226, up 48 overnight. New York State, 159,937 cases, up 8,766 overnight. Total deaths, 7,067, up 799 overnight. Philippines, 4,076, up 206 overnight. Total deaths, 203, up 21 overnight. New Zealand, incredible stats. New Zealand, with a population of 4.8 million people, 1,239 cases, up 29 overnight, just 1 death. Jamaica, 63 cases, now 4 deaths reported. Anguilla, 3 cases. Bermuda, 39 cases, 3 deaths. British Virgin Islands, 3 cases. Montserrat, 9 cases. Turks and Caicos, 8 cases, 1 death. So today is Holy Thursday. Tomorrow is Good Friday. As I think the people of these islands know and understand very well, Easter is the holiest of the celebrations in the Christian calendar, and Easter, Good Friday and Easter Sunday are the two most sacred days. It has been a long-standing tradition in these islands for there to be church services on Good Friday as well as Easter Sunday. And Good Friday especially, perhaps less so now than when I was a boy or a young person, is generally considered a very, very sacred day. I don't know about now, but when I was a youngster, we didn't even eat meat on Good Friday. Nothing that contained blood. A lot of those old traditions are falling away. We've had such an influx of people from elsewhere. But for many, these are still very important observations of the death of our Lord Jesus Christ. So I know that not being able to observe this Easter the way that we are used to is going to really be very difficult for many people. But I urge all of us to understand the sacrifice as Christ made his sacrifice, the sacrifice that we have to make to ensure that all of us continue to live, hopefully to see another brighter Easter next year. And that means staying home as much as we possibly can. Please, although we are getting reports about it, do not venture to your vacation homes up at Rum Point or Cayman Kai or anywhere else. Please stay in your usual abode. We are very concerned about persons going up to vacation homes, kids being kids. It's impossible to get kids to understand what physical distancing means. It's just not in the nature of a child to stay away from other children and other people. You have to keep them home and keep them near you. Tomorrow, as I say, is Good Friday. It is not a hard curfew day, but it is Good Friday. It is one of the days regarded as or defined as a prohibited day in the Sunday trading law. So most businesses will be closed. What I can say in terms of guidance is that subject to the regulations regarding your operations within the soft curfew, you must also have regard to the rules under the Sunday trading law as to whether or not you can carry out business on Good Friday. As an example, restaurants are exempt from the prohibition to operate on Good Friday, but would still be subject to the rules regarding around the soft curfew. I also want to say that curfew time at gov.ky, which has been working overtime, the people there have been working overtime, and I mean really overtime, for over 2 weeks now, since the 24th of March. They worked a minimum of 13 hours a day, some days 18 or 19 hours a day. And so my arm has been badly twisted to give them some time off over the long weekend. So curfew time will close this evening at 5 o'clock until Tuesday of next week. I hope everyone will understand and appreciate the tremendous amount of work that has gone on and is still going on to keep as many of the essential businesses and essential personnel operational as we possibly can. I think despite the frustrations we've had with the thousands upon thousands of requests, that the system has worked incredibly well. And I want to pay tribute to the hard-working staff there, led by the Chief Officer and the Minister of International Trade, Eric Bush. I'm not going to try to call all the names of the personnel there because I don't recall all of them off the top of my head, and I'm going to leave somebody out, and then I'll be in even bigger trouble. But I do intend to do a proper shout out to them very soon, and then I will hope to provide some stats on quite how many requests they have dealt with over the course of the last few weeks. And so I think I'll leave it there for the time being.
Thank you, Premier McLaughlin. Your Excellency.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I do want to start with the very positive news that we got. I know the Premier will join me in this as well. Just before we came on air, that Prime Minister Boris Johnson is out of intensive care. He remains in hospital, but I think we'll all be very pleased that he is now out of intensive care, and our best wishes to him and his family. Secondly, today I want to note that yesterday I held a virtual conference with about 29 different people in UK departments to give them a sense for the situation in Cayman. So we went over the economic situation, where we were on dealing with the virus, so the healthcare situation, and also on security. I think on security, it's very important that we have a stable situation now. My thanks again to the Police Commissioner and everybody involved in that. But we have to be planning for possible scenarios in the future. And I think it's reassuring to us to know that the UK is steadfast in its support to Cayman, and that came through in the meeting yesterday. I also just want to say that that's evident in continuing support on the healthcare side. So we are in touch with UK Crown agents now because they have procured some ventilators for the overseas territories, and we are seeking to secure a good number of those for Cayman. And this is a very difficult time in the UK because those are in short supply in the UK as well. But I mean, I'm reassured, and I'm sure all of you are, that the UK is continuing to look after its overseas territories, even at this time of crisis. Let me also just say that on the travel hotline, that will now be reopened on Tuesday, and it's open 9 until 5. There is a lot of discussion going on internally now about how we can help people who want to leave the islands to do so, and there'll be more to say on that next week. But that please do keep contacting that hotline and giving us your details. Finally, like the Premier, I absolutely recognise this is a really special time at Easter for everybody on our islands. And I wish everyone a happy Easter and to enjoy it as much as possible to the extent that we can in the extraordinary circumstances that we have. There is hope that if we lock down for the next 2 weeks and really continue to suppress this virus, we may at that point be in a different situation. But we absolutely have to follow all the advice in the next 2 weeks. Stay home, social distancing. And I thank everyone again for that. And we really do need to keep it going. Thank you.
Premier, are you going to say something before the governor started? Did you want to?
Yes, I because I did make a note of it, I forgot. I just wanted to, it's already out there. I saw some news
Yes.
releases about it. The governor forgot as well.
I forgot as well.
But we are very pleased and very relieved that the United States authorities have released the container that contains present tense, the ventilators, the masks, and various other things that we've ordered, or HSA has ordered, in connection with dealing with the COVID-19 threat. We really don't want to talk a lot about it, but we just really want to thank from the bottom of our hearts the U.S. ambassador to Jamaica for the intervention that was made, which has, quite frankly, made all the difference.
Thank you, Premier McLaughlin. Before we move on to Minister Seymour, I just want to make it clear that when our Premier mentioned a few minutes ago, he talked about the office curfew time closing, the staff being able to have a reprieve between this evening when they close until Tuesday morning. He didn't talk about curfew time as in the curfew.
No, the email.
We're getting lots of questions about it. Can you explain? So it's the people who are.
That's a late April Fool's joke, surely.
No, but honestly, I have people asking. So just to be clear, that you were not talking about the actual curfew hours, but you were talking about the staff who are managing the curfew time email.
Right. So it's the competent authority. I should have used the correct language. The competent authority, the contact of which is curfewtime@gov.ky. The staff that man the competent authority and that email are being given a reprieve, but everybody else is on the curfew.
I get it. All right. Now we have the pleasure of moving on to the Honorable Minister of Health, Mr. Dwayne Seymour.
Thank you, Donna. Happy Holy Thursday to everyone. Good afternoon, everyone in Grand Cayman, Cayman Brac, and Little Cayman. You heard the Premier and the Governor spoke of all this work that we've been doing. And I want everyone to be proud of your government and what we've been able to achieve. And for that, I want to start with some Latin, which is nothing to do about staying home, but I wanted to prove that I could speak some Latin, and to be proud of your country is dulcet decorum est pro patria more, and that actually means it's a good thing to stand up for your country. So that's a good one to practice. Today I want to thank Reverend Magoo for all he has taught me as a child. And he sent me today's Easter scripture, actually. And today's scripture, he was wounded for transgressions. He was bruised for iniquities. All the while we thought that his suffering was punishment sent by God. But by his stripes we are healed. It's Isaiah 53. So in Ecclesiastes 7:13 through 15, sent to me by my aunt, stop and think about what God has permitted to happen. When things go right, be glad and thank God. When they go wrong, go to God for help. Only he knows what tomorrow will bring. Is this like I've noticed two things that are hard to understand. A righteous man suffers and dies before his time, and a wicked man lives a long life of sin. I thank you. May God bless the reading of his holy word. I want to give a shout out to the hard-working staff at CUC. Give them a silent round of applause and all the hard work that they're doing and their team. We hear you, and we respect all that you do. Also want to give a shout out to CIMDS for all their cooperation, their cooperative spirit. I thank you very much for all that you're doing to work together, public and private partnership, all the medical fraternities, to ensure that we're prepared in case this COVID-19 heightens here in the Cayman Islands. I also want to send a birthday wish out to a former MLA, Miss Esther Ebanks. Happy birthday, Miss Esther. Now I move on to my translations. I thought it was, being it's Easter, to try to have something connected, related to Jesus and some of the language that he spoke when he was alive, and some of the languages that he actually spoke in. And today's translation is coming from Hebrew and also Greek. And the first one I spoke was a little Latin, and he had Latin understanding also. And this is please stay home in Hebrew. Beva kashe, esha haru, babait. In Greek, please stay home is paraminit esto spite. So a more Greek expression that everyone knows is Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, and everyone knows that. And one that many scholars study very, very frequent. In Aramaic, which is one of the languages that they taught Jesus spoke in, Tebuta and Shalma, from Ahala Abon, and from Uran Ishu, Mishika Yeshua, which means grace be with you and peace from God our Father and from our Lord, the Anointed One. Also wanted to mention, before I go further into mentions about Easter, is that I'm mindful that the landlords also depend on their rent, and I thank you all for your patience with the unemployed. My cry today and my plea is for the tenants that are still employed. Ask you to please pay, if you can, your rent. It takes the full pressure off your fellow man that doesn't have a job, that may have to shack up with someone else if they get kicked out, that may give them the coronavirus. And they may be asymptomatic, and you never know, that same person might be the person spread it to you in some public place. So please, let's be mindful and show some empathy, as everyone is hurting. We know everyone is hurting, and we need to comfort. We need them to have comfort over Easter also, so that they too can get some rest. Moving on, just to give you a bit of history, the Latin was the official language of the Roman Empire, but was only spoken by the aristocrats. And the villages of Nazareth and Capernaum in Galilee, where Jesus spent most of his time, were Aramaic speaking communities. It is also likely that Jesus knew enough Koine Greek to converse with those native in Judea, as is it possible he knew Hebrew for religious purposes. The Prime Minister of Israel, Mr. Netanyahu, in May 2014, also said that Jesus spoke Aramaic and he also knew Hebrew. Now, Aramaic, as I'm told, is closely related in dialect to Hebrew and is a sister language. The name Jesus in Aramaic is used as Yeshua, meaning to deliver or to rescue. Some of the well-known Aramaic phrases is when Jesus raised Jairus' daughter, he took her by the hand and said, Taliti komi, little girl, I say to you, get up. That's in Mark 5:41. The sign over the cross of Jesus illustrates the fact of many languages spoken at that time. Pontius Pilate had a notice prepared and fastened to the cross. It read, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of Jews. And the sign was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. In Matthew 26:73, one of the first accounts of the distinct Galilean Hebrew dialect is found in the story of Peter's denial of Jesus. Bystanders detected similarities in the accent between Jesus and Peter. Matthew account tells us. I thought that may be helpful, and I hope people appreciate that during this time of Easter Holy Week. By now, we all know quite a lot about the COVID-19 or novel coronavirus, including words or phrases we have not used before, like social distancing, flatten the curve, or crushing it, proper hand washing, hygiene, and most likely you and your families are already doing what is considered best practices at home. what is being asked of you during the soft and hard curfews. For that, we thank you. However, we as a government and our local medical experts still feel there is a possibility that many of us could still become infected with coronavirus. Thankfully, most cases are mild, but a lot of you have been asking, what if I get it? First, I want to send a message of love and best wishes to those who are currently dealing with this. We know that they must be scared, and we hope that each of them will come out of this, and we are rooting for you to get better. And let me be clear, none of us want anyone else to contract this virus, but the reality is that the coronavirus is out there. So what can we do to stay strong if we do get it? We've seen from reports from around the world that we should do a few things to improve our health and boost our immune systems overall so that our bodies will be able to cope through it. Please stop smoking, and we should all stay away from secondhand smoke and any open fire. Try to boost your immune system by reducing alcohol consumption, exercise every day, getting as much sleep as possible, and we should all plan for digital detox daily to reduce anxiety and stress. Eat a balanced diet with lots of vegetables and fruit. Drink lots of fluid. If you do get the virus, you should be, most importantly, listen to the advice of your doctor's offers you. Take medicines like paracetamol to reduce the fever and muscle aches. Practice breathing exercises at the direction of your doctor. But keep moving. When you can get up, try walking around the room for simple exercise. We are all keenly aware of the effects of the coronavirus on us, including the economic impact. As Minister of Culture, I'm pleased to announce that the government is currently in discussions with the Cayman Music and Entertainment Association, CMEA, as to provide a one-time stipend to assist our local musicians who are also experiencing hardship at this time. We are cognizant of the effects of the various closures of locations where local musicians would normally play at, especially on the weekends, and the overall impact of the tourism shutdown. So I would ask for all local musicians out there to please contact the CMA and the ministry's policy advisor for culture on Natasha, that's natasha.powell@gov.ky to register in this regard. Further details will be provided next week on this initiative. As you know, our public and private health providers are teaming up in various capacities to develop and implement a COVID-19 preparedness crisis plan. This includes the clinical task force who are working together to prepare the plans for the management of suspected and confirmed COVID-19 cases. One element of this partnership is to be equipped with necessary staff. The Health Services Authority is currently working with various private doctors and are now recruiting nurses on temporary contracts for those already registered in Cayman. If you're a nurse but not currently working, your services are needed. One of the unsung heroes on the front line are the housekeeping and cleaning staff. They are critical during this pandemic as the care for patients and the work environment for healthcare workers need to be in a clean and sanitary environment. HSA is also recruiting for these roles temporary contracts. Please reach out to the HSA directly at hs.jobs@hsa.ky. That's hs.jobs at hsa.ky or visit hsa.ky for more information. This is a time when our country needs all hands on deck to be prepared for any surge or COVID-19 patients. A shout out for today goes to the men and women of the Cayman Islands Fire Service who have stepped up to help with the emergency medical services, EMT. Another shout out goes to Tony Williams from Tony Toys for donating 500 N95 masks and 5,000 surgical masks donated by the Water Authority. Thank you all, and God bless you during this Easter weekend, and may we all get no more COVID-19 cases going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Seymour. We're going to move right into questions at this time. Just for clarification, back to a question that Wendy from CNS asked earlier, as it relates to reporting persons who are seeing outbreak in curfew. I think initially everybody was told to call 911. That doesn't seem to be working in some cases. What number should people call? Where should they contact? Commissioner of Police, Mr. Derek Byrne, if you could address that for us. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. 911 is the correct channel for reporting any breaches of curfew or any concerns anyone has in connection with COVID-19. On receipt of that call, it's then directed to the appropriate service, and that creates a central logging system so we can all respond to the calls received. So 911 is definitely the appropriate response channel for anyone that has any concerns around breaches of curfew or anything to do with COVID-19.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Byrne. Okay, we're going to move to Wendy at CNS. Wendy, go ahead.
Thanks, Donna. The general question I have is about gas prices. We've had quite a lot of people asking whether Ofreg are going to step in and do anything about the fact that gas prices don't seem to have come down. I understand that Rebus did offer a cut, but it doesn't seem to have necessarily been passed through to the pump. And we were wondering about what had happened with ESSO. So there are a few issues regarding gas prices. If I could get some clarity in that, and I have one more question.
I don't have anything on that at all, except the announcement by Sol that they reduced their prices by 40 cents a gallon. I haven't heard anything one way or the other since.
Okay, Wendy, any further questions?
Okay, thank you. The next question is really just a follow-up. I asked earlier on in the week about the whether the Department of Environmental Health was continuing to check out the food handling situation, given the deliveries, how much extra work that they're doing, and checking social distancing and all that sort of thing, because I think people had some concerns about that. So I think somebody was going to look it up. Also, we've had some contact from the people that are collecting garbage, and they're begging people to be more thoughtful about how they put their garbage out, and the problems that they're encountering with people just not being, everybody's at home at the moment, so there's a lot more garbage, and they were saying to us that it's pretty rough for them right now. And so could people be a bit more thoughtful, because they are like the most important workers in the universe, personally, I believe. So that was it. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Wendy. Also, now we'd like to move on to Reshma. Reshma, what questions do you have?
Thanks, Donna. I don't know if the Premier wants to answer that before I move on.
But I didn't hear a question in any of that. It was observations.
The question was whether we'd got any follow-up on the Department of Environmental Health checking food handling situations and the social distancing and all of the elements that go together with the increase of food production in small spaces.
No, Wendy, I'm afraid I don't have a report on that. I've just been swamped with so many things that I haven't actually made the inquiry. I'm afraid I have to take responsibility for that, but I will check it out.
I'll get it.
Thank you.
Okay, Reshma, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Premier, this question is for you. I know you said you don't want to go further into the U.S. situation, but can you just say if there were any assurances from the U.S. government that shipments that are not originating in the U.S. will be allowed to transit unimpeded. I know we have the remaining test kits from South Korea that still have to be shipped here, as well as some other COVID-19 supplies that are going to be heading our way. Can you say if you have any assurances on that?
There is an executive order issued by the President of the United States that prohibits the shipment of certain items which may be considered necessary for use during the COVID-19 crisis. It relates to items, equipment, which is fabricated in the United States. These ventilators were actually purchased well in advance of the 3rd of April. They are US made, as were the masks as well. So they did originate in the United States. But they were orders, you have to put orders in weeks and weeks in advance. It's very, very difficult to procure much of the stuff that we need. So we are fortunate, quite frankly, that we've managed to get these here. Now, in relation to the other 35,000 tests kits, they've gone from Seoul to the United Kingdom, and I can say we've agreed to sell those to Bermuda. I've been on the phone with Premier of Bermuda, and the governor's office here has been in contact with the governor's office in Bermuda. So they've agreed to take those. We have well in excess of what we will need. As we've indicated from the beginning, we bought 200,000 because that was the smallest unit that they were prepared to sell. But we have our brothers and sisters in the territories and more broadly in the region, and whatever we can do to help during this difficult time, we will. And so that particular decision has already been taken. In fact, while I'm sitting here, I've just gotten a thank you from Premier Burt from Bermuda, and offering to help us with other things which we might find short. So that's how it works, you know. Today, one hand wash the other, as we say in these parts.
Okay, thank you, Premier, and thank you for that valuable update. Just to return to the question, though, the products that may need to transit through the U.S., do we have assurances that the U.S. authorities will not stop those products from passing through the U.S. to get to us, or are we looking at alternative routes so that we circumvent having to go through the U.S.?
I don't know that you can get, or should you rely on a general assurance. The governor's office checked very carefully with respect to the kits that came from Seoul, because the first stopover was this stopover was in Anchorage, Alaska. But assurances were given then that because they were produced in Seoul, in South Korea, that there would be no issue, and there wasn't any issue. So we'll just have to keep checking very carefully. This is very fluid. Sometimes places and people become quite desperate. So you mustn't take general assurances, you know, for granted, because you need to absolutely make sure. But so far, so good.
Okay, thank you for that. This question relates to our borders and the opening of the ports. Now, some of the cruise companies have indicated that they plan to return to business by mid-May, and some have even indicated that Cayman is on the itinerary for those mid-May sailings. You have indicated before that we were looking at May 30th. Can you speak a little about this in relation to our opening of ports and the optimistic plans from the cruise companies?
Yes, they are optimistic, and they've made those publications without any consultation with us. So Cabinet met just before we came here, and the ports, all of them, will be closed at least until the 30th of June. Airports, seaports, the whole lot, except to emergency, for emergency flights or for evacuations or any other necessary missions that the government decides we should proceed with, but not to general commercial traffic.
Sorry, did you say June or is it May?
Until 30th May.
Okay, good. Thank you. Just double checking that one. My final question, hopefully will lighten the mood. I'm grateful for the granting of a day off to curfew time. We, on behalf of our colleagues, just want to check if we'll also be getting some time off from press briefings tomorrow and Monday. Is that still the plan?
Well, the plan is tomorrow and Sunday.
Tomorrow and Sunday. Saturday, Monday,
right.
we plan to be back.
All right, great. Thank you. That's all from me.
Okay, thank you, Reshma. Before we move on, just a correction from some officials at Rubis. They're saying that it's not Sol, it's Rubis that's been reduced by 40 cents and an extra 20 cents on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and it's definitely been passed on to the consumer at the pump. So just a mild correction there.
I stand corrected and apologize to Rubis.
It's okay.
I got it wrong. I know that's really bad form. So please forgive me.
It's okay. These things happen. I have a few questions before we move on with the rest of the media. Can we not get a list of the items that are not allowed or won't be shipped out of the U.S. or through the U.S. at this point? I have a business owner who tried to get in some hand sanitizers and it's been stopped. The shipment, she said, has been stopped.
I don't know if we have a list. Certainly at where we sit, we don't know that level of detail. I don't know if there is such a list published. There may be. There's been an executive order. I don't know whether there's a schedule attached to it or whether there's a general catch-all. I suspect it's the latter, that it's a general catch-all.
Okay. Thank you, Premier. Also, another question in regards to the ventilators that maybe this is for Dr. Lee or even Dr. Sam, who's joining us via Zoom. How are doctors, what's the process of training doctors and nurses on the use of the ventilators that are coming on island? Dr. Lee, Dr. Sam, are you there?
We've got ventilators here already. We know what we're doing.
Sam's not there. So yeah, how are the nurses and doctors trained? Will there be just a number of them that are trained on how to use the ventilators?
The use of ventilators really depends on what setting you're using them in. There are a number of different staff who are able to use the machines, so it's not just doctors. There are nurses as well and respiratory therapists. It's also relatively easy to get somebody to supervise something. There are some techniques that you can teach a lot of different staff to use with regards making sure the airway is kept clear of secretions and so on. So it is a task that you can break up into parts, and therefore you can teach parts and sort of like have somebody supervise more people who are able to do the less technical roles. I'm not sure if that answers all of the questions. Another thing to consider in this is we have stopped all the elective operating. So the anaesthetists would often be doing their day job of putting people to sleep to have operations and looking after them in the operating theatre. And they're also the same set of doctors who would look after people who are on the ventilators. So therefore we have a lot more anaesthetists around because we're not doing the elective surgery. In addition to that, there are nurses and theatre technicians who also know how to look after people who are on the ventilators in theatres, and they clearly are also not doing that. So as far as skills are concerned, there's quite a wide set of skills, and some of the easier tasks are easy to share, are relatively simple to teach, to share out.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for that answer there. Also, I have another question, not for Dr. Lee. I think this one is for the Premier. The million-dollar question. Everybody wants to know how far you've gotten on the talks with pension folks. I know you mentioned the other day that you'd gotten a report or a letter that you had to go through. People want to know when they can expect to hear any more, next week or when?
Yeah, well, we've been doing some work on it, and since the governor has insisted we take the day off from this tomorrow, I've insisted that my entire government have to come in either by Zoom or in person. So we're going to work on that. As I said before, I think that I know that there's really only one issue but it's a difficult one that we have to grapple with. There's no argument across the board about a pension holiday, a pension payment or contribution holiday. And I think there's also no real argument about that needing to be for 6 months. And there's really no argument either about allowing persons to have access to some of the funds in their pension account. The real issue is what's the formula, what formula do we agree upon? Because of course everybody's pension account is not the same amount, right? So you have to come up with some kind of formula. So that's what we're grappling with. And so we'll get down to brass tacks about that tomorrow. And as I've said before, both of those, though, do require legislative change. Even if we agree it just can't be paid out, or the pension holiday just can't occur without legislative change. So we're working on that aspect of it, how we hold a virtual meeting of the Legislative Assembly. I think we found an answer to that as well. So hopefully next week we'll be able to start to move ahead on some of these things.
Thank you, Premier. Also a question from the BRAC. Folks there are very concerned about the holidays and the fact that the barge arrival days are not blending with them needing to go and shop on Cayman BRAC. Are there any, I know you mentioned that earlier, that you may have to consider, or your cabinet may have to consider some different differences.
Right. So we've resolved all that. I keep telling people all the time, we have a good commissioner of police. So the commissioner of police has agreed to work with the operations in the BRAC to exercise appropriate discretion to allow everybody to have equal access to the fresh fruit and vegetables and chilled and frozen food. So he's working, or his officers through him are working with the supermarket owners to make sure that works fine. And I've advised the Deputy Premier and the Minister over there, so everybody's in the loop, and the BRAC will be just fine.
Okay, all right. That's good to hear, and I'm sure they're happy to hear that over there. Do we have any further questions for our panelists or our other guests in the room from the media? If not, this is your time to speak. If not, we're going to start wrapping up by having our panelists say some final words as we head into a day off. Everybody's happy, really happy about that. So any final words from our panel?
I just wanted to give one last shout out to, we keep saying CBC, but I think we need to be specific in saying CBC at the port for clearing all the goods. You guys are doing a very great job and working very hard. I thank you for all you do. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, we thank everybody, of course, for joining us for yet another press briefing. We are off. We're supposed to be off unless something really major happens tomorrow. We do hope that everybody enjoys their time off at home, in their homes with their families tomorrow. Of course, we'd like to thank everybody who's made today possible. Again, here on CIG TV for another press conference coverage. We'd just like to remind everyone that you can go online to gov.ky/coronavirus to find the answers to your many questions there if you haven't heard them being asked and answered here on air. Also, you can go to eservices.gov.ky for questions as it relates to trade and business licensing, vehicle licensing, and police clearance records and other e-services that are offered by the Cayman Islands government. Also, if you have any employment questions, you can go online and, of course, get in touch with the Department of Labor and Pensions there for any of those questions. All right. Well, once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here again on Saturday.
Many persons are tuning in right now hoping to see another episode of Double Six Foes. But as this is the final day and myself and many others are going to be in the isolation facility, we wanted to say thank you. Please enjoy.